Hello.
All right, Red. What do you think?
Very good. Well, I have two questions. Um, you mentioned how COVID affected everything and it kind of brought fathers home and had a bigger role in family activities and just the general division of labor. Was there any positive effect or anything measurable of having fathers back at home a little bit more and more involved with some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so sad to say. I mean, if we're talking about kids, the pandemic was not good for them. There's a lot of learning loss that happened. I think, it was really a crisis period where people were scrambling and trying to do their best. I think we're still trying to understand what the long-term effects of that are going to be. But, we did so in terms of like dads being home and their kids doing better or something like that. I can't really say because there's just these other kind of factors that are going on. What we did see though is that relationship satisfaction actually went up. Surprisingly, I mean, you would think that people would just be like stressed, and I mean, stress did go up, and in spite of that, right? In spite of the stress, people like were really appreciative of their partners. Like they were really very, on the whole, happy with how they handled it as a couple, despite all the challenges. In most couples, it was my partner really rose to the challenge here. And so, so there was that sort of silver lining to things.
Okay. In all your research, what have you found anything that was surprising that you felt was like you mentioned with the COVID, that even though stress levels went up, a relationship satisfaction went up?
Yeah.
Is there anything else in your research that has surprised you like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one thing that was really surprising, just because of the magnitude of it, was how much the division of labor pre-pandemic meant for women's labor force participation when the pandemic kicked off. And so what we found was that that if fathers really weren't involved pre-pandemic with like childcare and housework, that their spouses had a 50%, if their spouses were working for pay, had a 50% chance of leaving the labor force. 50%, 1 out of 2. And if dads were just even engaged a little bit, like doing a third of the housework and childcare or half, that the chances that moms would leave the labor force were considerably smaller, less than 10%. And so that it made me think about, because it's not like that's money that can just be foregone. Like ask it, there's a reason why people have two partner, why couples are both working for pay, and it's usually out of need just to get by. And so what a tough decision to make, right? To have someone leave a job, and these were voluntary exits too. These weren't necessarily people whose jobs closed. And so, I thought really hard about what that looked like in those families, and what those decisions were like, and they could not have been easy ones. So to see like 50% chance, that to me was just kind of floored me a bit.
Yeah. I guess last question, what got you into this field? Like, when was there some moment when you were in college or younger where you're like, I want to learn about this, or this is very interesting to me?
Yeah. Yeah, right. I don't know. It's just a lot of things over time. I felt that, but this was a field that, one I had a personal interest in. I'm married, I have kids, so it's a little bit of me searching this, trying to understand what's going on in my family. But there's also, I think, as I started reading about it, like we don't have, honestly, we don't have a really good understanding of what is driving changes in divisions of labor in families, and how we arrive at these arrangements, and also what arrangements, right? When are arrangements good for us? When are they bad? And it just seemed like, this is so ubiquitous. Everybody deals with this stuff, right? Every couple deals with it. And so knew so little at the end of the day, or that what we did know was very contradictory, like, oh, it's you're equal earners, then you're more likely to do share the housework, but if she earns more, then men don't do any. It's like, what are you talking about? Like crazy weird findings. And it just seemed like there's so much to understand there, that and it impacts so many people that I was just driven to learn more.
That's fascinating to hear. Yeah, where's the correlation in these human conditions, like you said, that were so ubiquitous too?
Yeah, and again, so many things have changed, which is really important. Like the world today is vastly different in the United States from the world of the 1950s and 60s, and that in a lot of ways we're still operating right in this vein, but like the world doesn't facilitate that, and so we're struggling to adapt and change and figure out kind of what do we want to do? Do we want to go back to that? Do we want to move forward? Is it, how do we facilitate what's best for a couple? And again, what advice do we have? It's like, what am I supposed to do? People want to know, right? That's why they watch this podcast. They're like, tell me what I should do. And we're like, that's not great. And, to the other folks who do this work, I see so much advice being given, and I'm like, you don't know that works. You don't know that works. You just tell them, oh, just sit down and have a conversation. Don't you think they would have done that already if they could? Like, that's going to solve their problem? Oh, just create a short chart. Like, we throw this, like, oh, how do I make this happen? And so much of it, I don't feel is really evidence-based. And I think that we could do better by couples by learning more about what really works and what really matters. So
that's perfect.
I love that dads are more involved, right? Even starting with the delivery rooms. We need our dads. And I think in society, we make such fun of men, on sitcoms and whatnot. And I love the fact, going back to the COVID and the research you did, that couples are happier. Without a doubt, if that's the case, if mom and dad are happy and doing well, then a child is likely doing well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And so many men want to be involved at home. I mean, study after study, survey after survey shows that fathers want to be more engaged. And again, the COVID gave them an opportunity to work from home, which they might not have had before. And now they like working from home. And sometimes their employers are finding out that their concerns about that were maybe misfounded. Like, oh, people aren't just as productive working from home. And it's okay to get them flexibility, and it's okay to give them the chance to do these dual roles and manage them. And so, again, to me, like, this gets to the core. It's just like, what makes couples happy is being able to have the relationship that they envision, right? And enact that. But when there's so many barriers to it, then that's what's going to ultimately lead to conflict and to unhappiness. And so, it's a shame that fathers want to be more involved but feel like they can't, and it's a shame that mothers want careers but don't feel like they can. Like, it shouldn't be that way. We should have things in place to help facilitate people's family arrangements that they want.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.